It's horrible when we meet somebody who's selling to us and they just treat us like a wallet. Like, I'm just trying to get into your wallet. I don't really care about you as a person. So making sure that you're establishing that positive first impression is really, really important.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fantastic one. Our guest is a sales expert and founder of YourSalesMaven.com, who has over 25 years of selling experience to many companies and organizations, including Hewlett-Packard and NASA. Nikki Rausch, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you, Nikki. And, you know, sales is such a great conversation. It's so needed. You can never get good enough at it. And, and when you do get good at it, great things happen in your business. And so, Nikki, it's great to have you here. But before we get into talking about sales, let's hear from you about your career journey leading up to this point.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here. You mentioned in my bio that I've been in sales for over 25 years. I started in tech sales, so in technology, and did that for many years. I was a traveling road warrior for many years, covering a very large territory, selling to some of the bigger companies that you mentioned, a couple in the bio. And during that time, while I was traveling and selling and building all of these relationships, because the way that I worked at the manufacturer level, so at the manufacturer level, our customers were kind of multi-tiered. We had distributors that we worked with who then sold our product to dealers, and dealers then sold it to end users. And then we also had direct dealers that we supported. And then we also would go out and work with end users who wanted to understand about our product, learn about our product, and then we would hook them up with customers. So I'm used to working with people at multiple levels and building relationships along the way. And during that process, I got really interested in how could I build better, stronger relationships? And I found my way to studying neuro-linguistic programming. I don't know if that's a new term to anybody listening, but it's essentially the study of communication. And I really dove deep into NLP because I found that it made me a better communicator. And not only did it help in the sales environment, but it really helped me in all areas of my life with the relationships that I had of just really being able to listen better, to pick up cues from people, to be able to phrase things in a way that was more, that the other person would be more open to hearing. So all of these things I was able to bring into my sales career and had a lot of success there. And in 2013, I started Sales Maven really from a perspective of I was meeting some really cool entrepreneurs and they were struggling with sales conversations. They were struggling to make money in their business. They didn't really understand how to recognize buying signals, what to say next. Like, how do you move somebody from like maybe kind of interested to the close? And so Sales Maven was really born out of wanting to show people how to have those conversations and give them this step-by-step approach. And it's been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And I primarily work with women because I find that women oftentimes struggle with the conversations around money because they're not sure how to do it. They sometimes feel guilty about talking about what they charge and all of these types of things. And so getting more women comfortable having sales conversations has been my primary goal. And the impact that I've seen over the last almost 8 years now has been incredibly powerful. to watch what can happen for a woman business owner when she gets much more comfortable having sales conversations.
I love those kind of stories. Do you have any that jump out at you?
Yes. I remember this was a client. I mean, I have many client stories, but one in particular where it was a woman who had started her own business, and she was in a very male-dominated industry, and it was a pretty competitive industry. And they were winning these pretty significant contracts for longer term, opportunities. And after kind of working with her and helping her understand like what's going on in the conversation, I teach a 5-step process for sales. I call it the selling staircase, and teaching her this 5-step process so she knew where she was in the conversation and what to do next. One of the highlights was her calling me one day and she's like, I just got done with a lunch meeting with these really important clients. And it's the very first time that I didn't sit there like sweating bullets, feeling like, I don't know what to say. I knew exactly where we were in the conversation. I knew exactly what to say next. And I ended up earning their business. And this was business that she had been trying to get for a really long time. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm always looking for and wanting to really serve my clients at that level so that they're never sitting in that situation going like, I don't know what to say. I'm not sure what to do now. What if the client says this? What should I say then? And, she was like, I was just totally comfortable and relaxed the whole time. I knew exactly where I was. I knew exactly what to say next.
I love that. We'll get back to the interview right after this word from our sponsor. Manage bookkeeping quickly and easily. With Cinder, you can import unlimited historical payment data, automate manual payment entries in books, and get detailed information about transactions. Connect all client sales channels and payment providers such as Stripe, Square, PayPal, Amazon, and more to Cinder to have books under your constant supervision. Cinder will automatically fill in all the missing details and send proactive notifications if something needs your closer attention. Excited? Get free access now on Cinder.com. That's SYNDER.com. Thank you for hearing from our sponsor. Now let's get back to the interview. You've said a couple of things there. I mean, just the name of the process that you teach, the selling staircase. I mean, when you walk up the stairs, you always know where the bottom of the stairs are, the middle of the stairs, the top of the stairs. And you said people don't feel lost. And I hear that often, that people, well, I don't actually hear them say that they're lost out of the gate. They say they don't like selling because of whatever reason. There's lots of reasons. But when you dig a little deeper and ask somebody or talk to somebody about this, and we've had many conversations with literally hundreds, if not thousands of bookkeepers who have expressed this, often it's because they don't know where to take it, where to go, what to say, so everything that you've said. And so if you know where you are, if you know where to start, you know where you are in the middle, and you know where to end, I mean, you can't get lost. And therefore, if you're not going to get lost, you're probably going to feel more comfortable doing it, more enjoyable. I mean, let's face it, if we were going to go do something that's kind of scary and we know we're likely going to get lost, we wouldn't do it. Right? It was like, let's stay home today. So let's not stay home. How can we help our listener not stay home today and get to the theme park, have some fun, and close some business?
Well, if I can, I'll just talk through really quickly the 5 steps of the selling staircase, and maybe that will help bring some clarity if somebody's like, I don't know what's going on here in this conversation. I don't know where to go.
I love it. I'm excited.
Okay, good. So step 1 is the introduction. And in the introduction, this could be you're out in a networking meeting and you're meeting somebody for the first time. The introduction can also happen through marketing. Somebody has heard about you or they've been referred to you. But the idea of step 1 is your job is to make a really powerful first impression. So it needs to be really clear to somebody who you are, what you do. And you also need to be able to build rapport. And I always say everything I teach is built on the foundation of rapport. So it's relationship first, rapport always in every step, because frankly, none of us want to be treated like a big old wallet walking around. So it's horrible when we meet somebody who's selling to us and they just treat us like a wallet. Like, I'm just trying to get into your wallet. I don't really care about you as a person. So making sure that you're establishing that positive first impression is really, really important. And that can come with being really clear in your messaging. That can also come from having clear packages laid out on your website, for instance, or at a networking meeting, being able to engage somebody and put them at ease, really quickly. And I'm just going to give you the most simplest idea around this. Like, when you're out meeting people, one of the things that you want to do is you want to make it easy for someone to be in conversation with you. And I often find that when I go and I'm meeting people and I'll say, "Hi, I'm Nikki. It's nice to meet you." And they'll say, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you." But they don't tell me their name. So if you're a bookkeeper and you want to establish some credibility, make sure you just even say your name to somebody when you're introducing. Don't just say, "Hi, nice to meet you." Say, "Hi, Nikki. I'm Jody. It's nice to meet you." Like, that little thing helps me, if I'm a potential client, go, okay, so at least now I know her name. Like, something as simple as that can make a big difference in a conversation of where it's going to go next. Because it's super awkward to have to go, "Oh, and what was your name?" It's super awkward for the client or prospect to have to do that. So, put yourself out there, be professional, establish that positive first impression. Step 2 in the selling staircase is creating curiosity. This is the most missed step, by the way, in the selling staircase. And the other thing I want to say before I go into creating curiosity is the idea behind me teaching these 5 steps is when you're in the position of earning somebody's business, when you're the seller, your job is to walk somebody through all 5 steps. You don't get to skip steps. And this is why sales oftentimes gets uncomfortable, because sometimes somebody who's not really comfortable selling thinks, I'm supposed to meet somebody and then I'm supposed to go in for the close. Well, if you meet somebody and you go right in for the close, you went from step 1 to step 5, you skip step 2, 3, and 4. And oftentimes the prospect doesn't really like that. They don't know what's going on. They haven't established any kind of relationship with you. And therefore they get confused. Sometimes they get angry because they feel like, oh, just another pushy salesperson, right? So your job is to not skip steps. Now, the only exception is the client or prospect can skip steps. So if somebody comes up to you at an event and says, "Hey, Michael, I heard really great things about you. I'd really love to join your program, or I'd like to work with you privately," or whatever it is. I don't want you to say, "Hold your roll there, mister. We got to go back to step 1. I want you to say, "Great. Let's find out what I can do for you and let's get started together," right? The client or prospect can skip steps, but you don't get to. So when you're in the sales conversation, step 2 now is creating curiosity. And the objective here is to have somebody want to lean in, ask some questions, and find out more about what you're doing. One of the things I often hear from business owners is they don't get to talk about their business enough. They might go to an event, or they might feel like nobody's paying attention to them on social media, or they might send out emails and get crickets. Oftentimes it's because they're not creating any curiosity. They're not having people go, "Tell me more. What does that mean? How could that serve me?" So I often compare creating curiosity to, and this is going to sound a little crazy, so stick with me for just a minute if you would, but I often compare creating curiosity. It's the difference between how you call a dog and how you call a cat. I know that sounds a little crazy, but if you think about, I don't know, are you a dog or cat lover, Michael?
A cat lover.
Okay. So, a lot of times when you hear dog people, when they want to get their dog's attention, they do this high pitched, "Come here, boy, come here." And dogs tend to respond to that kind of energy. They're like, "Ooh, something fun's going to go on. I'm going to come. I'm going to hang out with you. Let's see what you're doing. I'm going to get a treat, or we're going to go for a walk or something," right? But when you show up in a conversation with a new prospect and you have what I call dog calling energy, it's like, "Oh my gosh, here's a new person to talk to. And I'm so excited. And I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about my bookkeeping business and how I can help you and why you need to work with me." People are like, ugh, it's too much. We don't respond as humans to dog calling energy. I often say you you tend to be word vomiting all over people, and nobody wants to be word vomited on. So the flip side of that, think about how you call a cat. You go, here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty. Now, if you say that to your cat, the cat may come, but often the cat might just look and go, what are you doing? Let me see. Maybe I'll come, maybe I won't, but I'll at least give you a little bit of attention. So you want to learn how to create these, what I call cat calling, here, kitty, kitty responses. Oftentimes it's the way you respond to questions that get people leaning in, or it's the questions that you ask that get people wanting to have more of a conversation about whatever the topic is. So in a live conversation with somebody, here's an example. One question we often get asked all the time is like, hey, how have you been? Right? Or how are you? Or like a really basic everyday question. And this is a great opportunity for you to plant what I call a here, kitty, kitty statement and see if you're actually in a conversation with a prospective client, or if you're just meeting somebody that's like, oh, that's nice, and they're not interested, that's okay. But it's your job to check it out. So if somebody said right now, like, hey, how have you been, Michael? It would be so awesome if your response would be something like, oh, I've been great. I just launched a new program. Or, oh, I've been great. The podcast is doing really well. Some little thing that allows for that other person to go, oh, you have a podcast? What's your podcast about? Oh, what's your background in that? Right now you're in a real business conversation with somebody. You're getting to talk a little bit about your business versus like, oh, I'm fine. Leave it there. That doesn't do anything, right? So learn how to plant seeds, learn how to create these here, kitty, kitty comments, responses that people go, tell me more about that. And oftentimes when you're able to do this, when you're able to create curiosity, what happens next is people start giving what I call buying signals. I actually wrote my second book about buying signals because they're super prevalent out there and they're really missed all the time. So if you said something about your podcast and somebody's like, oh, okay, the Successful Bookkeeper, podcast, tell me more about that. And then you start talking about your background and who you serve and who you coach. And they go, I have a bookkeeping business. I wonder if there's something we could do together. That's a huge buying signal right there, right? They've just indicated in some way like, maybe I'd like to know more. Now, one of the mistakes that people often make is like, oh yeah, go listen to the podcast, or yeah, here's my here's my business card, or, go check out my website. No. You've missed the buying signal if that's the case. Instead, I want you to say something like, well, is that something you'd be interested in chatting about more? Like, let's schedule a time to do that. Let's get that on our calendars. Then you schedule a time, and now you've just invited the person to move to step 3 in the process, which is what I call the discovery call. Now, this can happen, by the way, in all one conversation. It doesn't have to be broken up into multiple meetings. Sometimes it will be. Sometimes it'll happen all in one conversation. But the objective is, once you know what step you're on, is to invite the person to the next step, because the client or prospect, they don't know what to do next. They're waiting for you to take the lead. And the way you take the lead is by issuing an invitation. So what I just said there was, oh, is that something you'd like to chat more about? Can we schedule a time? That's me issuing an invitation, essentially saying to the other person, here's what we do next. And they'll oftentimes go, yes, great, let's do that. Now, once you're in the discovery, your objective here is to understand what's the problem, what's the need, what's the want of this person. That means you got to ask really strategic questions, and you got to be a good listener. Your job, by the way, in the discovery process is not to sell. You're not supposed to sell during this step. You're supposed to ask questions. You're supposed to build rapport. So one of the mistakes that people often make is they'll ask somebody a question, they'll get the answer, and they'll start coaching, or they'll start selling to the person during that call. Huge mistake. All you're supposed to do in the discovery is ask really good questions and build rapport. Because what we're trying to do is establish, does this person have a want, a desire, a problem, a need? And do I have a solution for it? And the only way you're going to know that is by asking questions.
Well, I love it. I love it. It's, it's always great for people. Our listener right now is hearing some great stories and really connecting of the dots. I love the cat analogy and was thinking, I don't have a cat right now. Our kids want to get a cat. We haven't gotten around to it. Anyways, I get a little off track. Just listening to this though, it's just so powerful. And like as you were saying, people go into selling or they go into solving the problem when they're asking in the discovery. And I almost what occurred to me is like it's like burying gold. Hey, I just found gold. Let's bury it.
Yes.
It's like, let me solve that for you, and then that'll totally take us off you and put it more onto me. And guess what? We've lost the vein of gold. And we don't know where it is anymore. And so, I've made this mistake a lot in my career, and I've buried a lot of gold, where gold's so much fun to find for potential of the sales, but it's great for the client to be able to go deeper into that gold because they start to get clarity on what their own problem is. And then when everybody's clear, so much easier to solve someone's problem when everybody's clear. And then we can move into the different stage. I really like that. And I think the compartmentalization, hey, everybody, we're in the discovery stage. This is only about you and understanding the customer and what their challenges are and finding the gold, which is what's the problem and how can you help them?
Yeah. And also sometimes the objective is to identify clearly, like maybe this is not an ideal client for you. So by asking strategic questions, you'll have some realization earlier on in the conversation. So you're not wasting that person's time and frankly yours. So, I always say in my discovery calls, my objective is to understand what the problem is, what the need is, and identify whether or not this is a client that I have a solution that fits for. And if I don't, then I'm going to bless and release that person as fast as possible because their time is valuable and my time is valuable. And there's no need to try to create something that like, well, maybe I could help them if I change this or change that. It's like, no, this is not the right client for me. And frankly, I'm not the right person for them in this part of where they are with what their problem is. So I might offer them, a potential other resource, or I might just say, I get a sense from talking with you that maybe I'm not the right fit for you. Like I'm not the right sales coach for you. So I'm going to respectfully decline continuing on with this conversation, but I'm so happy to have met you and I really appreciate your time and I wish you the best. That's a bless and release.
I like that. And I see this as you said, these steps, whilst you don't skip any, they can go faster or slower depending on the situation. And so constantly qualifying and understanding, is there even something that can be mutually gained from being in a relationship together? Yeah.
So let's say that you get to you get through your strategic questions. And when I say strategic, I always mean all questions should lead to hiring you and or identifying quickly that this isn't the right fit. So be careful. Don't ask questions that you only need the answers to once the person hires you. Ask the questions that it plants some seed for them of like, oh, there's probably something here that would benefit my business in some way versus like, an example for me is I don't ask clients in a discovery call, like what CRM are you using? Totally irrelevant. I might ask that once we start working together. How are you tracking your clients? So as a bookkeeper, you might not need to know like, who do you bank with? Or I'm trying to think of another one, like what type of software are you using?
There's a long, because it's a technical service in many regard. You could go, this is probably, if there was one area that I would put money on that this is where things go sideways, is you start talking about the bookkeeping. You start talking about the systems and the technology and all of that stuff. It's just, that's exactly what the owner does not want to talk about. Yes. And it takes it away from actually talking about problems to actually talking about solutions.
Yes. Good, really good point. Yes. So once I've understood, like, okay, we've had this conversation, I have a sense that there is some way that I could serve this client. They would be a good client for me. I could offer a solution to whatever the problem is or whatever the struggle they're having. So the way that I do that is I would say, after asking my questions and getting the answers, I would say to somebody, for instance, after hearing a little bit about what's going on in your situation, I do get a sense that there are ways that we could work together. Would you be interested in hearing about those? Notice I don't say like, oh, thanks so much for sharing all your information with me. Here's how you should hire me. Here's how we'll work together. No, I'm going to make sure I do this one step in between, which is I'm going to ask permission before I lay out offers. Because if you do that, then people are ready for them. But if you skip this asking permission piece, they may not be ready to hear your offer. Or frankly, they may have already decided like, you're not the person for me. So now you're just wasting your time and energy on this person. Or they might feel like, now you've gone into really hard sales mode and that doesn't feel good to me. So make sure you ask permission, which is again, really simple way to say, based on what you shared, I get a sense that there's definitely a way that we could work together. Would you be interested in hearing about those? Or would you be interested in hearing about that? Then wait, let them respond. Now we have moved to step 4 in the selling staircase, which is the proposal phase. And when I say proposal, this could mean like a actual formal proposal with like a statement of work, or it could just be in a conversation with somebody saying, here's what I would recommend. This is the bookkeeping package I would recommend for you. So you lay out your proposal to them. And when in the proposal stage, I always say, your job is to be the expert. Your job is to recommend what you know based on the information the client has given you, what that client needs, not what you think they can afford. And there is a difference because sometimes as salespeople, oftentimes, not even sometimes, we project our own limiting beliefs onto clients. Oh, they'll never pay that much. Oh, they could never afford this. Oh, they're wanting the least expensive thing, like such a huge mistake. Especially if the solution that is really going to solve their problem is your mid-tier or your high-tier package, whatever that is. So when you're in the proposal, make sure you're recommending what the client needs, not what you think they can afford. And then if it turns out that they're like, yeah, that's out of my budget, you can always step down into like, okay, well, here's a way we could get started together, possibly if you have that as a solution. Or you, again, identify this is not the right client for me. They don't fit into the package that I have, or this is not a good solution for them. So I got to bless and release, let them move on, find a bookkeeper that's a better fit.
I love that.
And then once you've laid out the proposal, you've made it super clear. I'm also going to say here that I never recommend giving clients more than 3 options in the proposal. If there's really just one option that's the best option for them, it's totally fine giving that. But if you're somebody who has like 10 different packages of ways clients can work with you, you don't ever give them 10 different options. You pick the top 3 based on what they've shared with you, and you can recommend up to 3. Never more, because otherwise you're going to overwhelm and get people in this like, I can't decide mode, which is not a good place to be. So you lay out your proposal, you lay out the way to work together, then you issue, which is now step 5, close language. So step 5 in the selling staircase is the close. This is the second most missed step, by the way, in the selling staircase, because we lay out our proposal and then we go, okay, yeah, let me know. No. Oftentimes, clients will not make a decision to hire you until you pose the question to them. So an example of a closed question is, here's the proposal, here's what I suggest. Is that something you'd like to move forward with? That's a closed question. Typically, closed questions are yes or no questions because I want you, as my prospect, to make a decision. And the way people make decisions is we pose a question to them that allows them to go, yeah, I am ready to move forward, or no, or I have a question. But they won't ever get there if you don't issue the close statement. It's super, super important, that close question.
I would imagine this is another another sideways moment where it could be, everybody's agreed that, good conversation, good rapport. We agree that there's some problems and some solutions and there's a fit and people can help each other here and it's all good. And it's like, why don't you think about that? This has been good talking. I'll let you think about that. I'll go away and I'll let you come to yes without me somewhere down the track, which often will likely not be a yes, or it'll just get forgotten. And even if it becomes a yes, it's just the work there's just a lot more work now. All of a sudden, we've got to meet again. We got to redo this all again. We got to build rapport again. Mm-hmm. So I think what you're proposing here is opportunity it's a powerful question. It's like, do you want to dance or not?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to be offended based on their answer. I mean, if their answer is to decline, okay. If you're shocked by the, declining because you're like, man, we've had such great rapport. We've talked about solutions and they seemed really on board. It's also okay to say to somebody if they go, I think this isn't for me. It's okay to say, is it all right if I ask your reason for declining? Like, ask in a really kind way, but oftentimes they'll tell you like, hey, you missed a step here with me, or, we're something's going on in our business and we can't swing it right now, or whatever. But don't be afraid to ask questions. I always say you can really ask just about any question if you pay attention to the way you phrase it, what you do with your voice when you ask it, and what kind of level of rapport do you have with the person. Also, like, all of these things impact how people are going to respond. Don't be afraid to ask the really hard questions, because that might be where the gold is. Somebody might go, well, you never talked about such and such. And you might think, oh my gosh, I totally thought we talked about that. I'm so sorry I missed this step with you. Is it okay if I circle back here and talk through a little bit about the solution for you? Like, you won't know if you don't ask those questions. And then here's the other thing that often happens is the prospect will say, I need to think about it. And I know that I think what I'm going to share with you now may not be the same type of response that a lot of other sales coaches will teach, but I'll explain kind of my philosophy behind it as well. If somebody says to me, I want to think about it, I will say, great. About how much time do you think you'll need to do that? Let's go ahead and schedule a circle back call now on our calendars. That way I can answer any additional questions that come to mind for you, and we can decide together on next best steps. Can we get that on our calendars now? Oftentimes when people say, like, if you hear somebody says they need to think about it, like, no, you got to go in for the hard sell. You got to, push that person. But I don't agree with that philosophy. I think sometimes people really do need some time to think about it. If you don't schedule that next call with them, though, if you just say, oh, okay, well, let me know when you're ready, they'll never be ready because there's no deadline for them to make a decision. But if you schedule a circle back call and it's on their calendars, they're going to see, oh, I have a call with Michael on Thursday. I haven't actually spent any time about, thinking about whether or not I'm going to, move forward with him. But come Thursday, oh, now I'm talking to Michael here in an hour. I better review this and make some decisions, come up with some questions. And then you get on the call and now you have a real deep conversation with them, whatever questions have come to mind. Or sometimes they'll send you an email, 15 minutes before and say, I've thought about it. I'm out. Great. Now you can move on with your day and go do something else. Or they'll get on the call with you and they're like, Michael, I'm so in. I can't wait to work with you. Let's go. Great. Then you have a new client.
It's wonderful. And I believe that your approach is likely one that will resonate with our listener and resonates with me.
Oh, good.
And I would say it's what I would say is the next best thing to closed business is a confirmed next step meeting, which is, human beings, they need to talk to things. They need to put things in order. They need to think about it. Now, again, it's an opportunity. Once you've booked a next step, well, that's the next step. It's like we have a meeting, it's in the calendar. And I can tell you, this is not just in the bookkeeping industry, but all industries, rarely gets done.
Rarely gets done.
Yes.
It's
even on a conversation. It's like you meet someone at a party and they say, hey, we should you should connect. I'd really like to know more about your bookkeeping service. Okay, great. Give me your card and I'll call you. It's like, oh, now I got to call you. That's work. How about we let's pull out our calendar and get a time. Does that work for you? Oh, I don't have my phone. Okay. Well, tell me, what's the best day to call you? Oh, I'm going to call. Like, it's just going for that actual date and getting it into a calendar as close to as mutually committed calendar saves everybody so much time. Then you get on a call, you're having a call, and you go through all this whole process, and they say, hey, do you want to work with me? I need to think about it. Oh, okay. Well, I'll let you think about it. I'll call you. Oh, more work. It's like, get it on the calendar. It's like the best thing. If that was all you did was just say, if I win when I book another call with somebody and we mutually agree to meet at another time, you're going to see a lot more closed business and you're going to have to work a lot less. I see it all the time, even in our business. It's like, just, hey, you said you'd call them back to book another. It's like, you're on the call. Just do it now.
Yeah.
Just do it now.
Yeah. I always say, if you're going to add something to a prospect or a client's to-do list, like, oh, I'm supposed to call Michael, or, oh, I'm supposed to go look at I got to go find his business card and then, make time in my schedule to call. Like, they won't, because they're busy and because people die with their to-do list undone, frankly. And you keep getting pushed down on the to-do list. And at some point, it's like an email, if you've heard that term, getting pushed below the fold. You can only see so many of your emails in your inbox, even if you have, like me, 3,000, which is ridiculous. But at some point, those emails, they don't even exist in my world because I can't see them. So if you're not at the top, and most people live and breathe their calendars, if you're not on somebody's calendar, you're making it really hard for them to get the solution that they need. You're making it super hard for them to hire you. You're making it super hard for them to even be in a conversation with you. And the easier you make it for people, the more likely you are to earn their business. We unintentionally, a lot of us put up these huge roadblocks, or these essentially roadblocks that we make clients climb over in order to hire us. I hear this over and over again when I'm coaching with clients. I'll ask about their process and I'll go, okay, wait a minute. You're asking the client to do 5 things in order to give you money. That's a mistake. We gotta narrow this down. We gotta make this so easy for someone to go, yes, here, I'm in. Here's the money. Let's go. And oftentimes people are like, oh no, Nikki, I have to do it this way. And I'll go, okay, let's dig in a little bit. And I almost always find I can remove multiple roadblocks that they've put in place. And clients will come back over and over again. I have a client right now, well, she's a former client now, but she still reaches out to me on a regular basis. And she's always like, oh my gosh, Nikki, this person just gave me $4,000 on our first call. This has never happened. And now she's at this place where she's like, I just blew through, I just made had a $30,000 month. That was nowhere close to when we started working together. She wasn't even having $10,000 months. She's like, people will just pay me money on these calls. And I'm like, because you now make it easy for them to hire you, and you're really clear about what your offer is, and they're really clear about what to do next. And so guess what? They hire her, they get a really awesome solution, they're super happy with it, and they refer other people. And her business is just thriving.
So exciting. So much opportunity here I can hear in this conversation. I'm really excited about people taking some of this into their own sales conversations. There's so much more we could talk about. And I love this conversation because it's so exciting. It's like you say, they're out there. They want to buy a solution to solve their problems. That's what they want to do. They want to put money at the problem and solve it.
Yes.
But you got to go find the problem, find the people, find the problem, convince them that you have what it takes to solve that, and ask for the business. And so you've laid out a wonderful staircase to getting there. If people want more information, what resources do you offer that can help them take more of this on and make them a sales master?
Well, I have a couple things.
Or Maven, I guess.
A Maven, yes, exactly. For your audience, I would love to offer them one of my ebooks. So this is a gift from me to the audience. They can go and get it by going to yoursalesmaven, maven.com/bookkeeping. You'll download the ebook, which is called Closing the Sale, and it kind of talks through step 3, 4, and 5. So that's one way. I also have a podcast called Sales Maven, where I give lots of sales advice. I do on-air coaching calls. I do client success stories. We talk about what they've implemented and how it's worked in their business. And I do actually have a book that is called The Selling Staircase that walks through these 5 steps. So there's lots of ways, but the best way is to go and get that free ebook now, which is the Closing the Sale. It's all about building confidence. It gives some of the language that I've suggested here for the listener. So again, yoursalesmaven.com/bookkeeping, and then we'll be connected.
I love it. So many great resources by the sound of it. I know on behalf of our listener, I want to thank you for your generosity in coming and sharing your experience and your knowledge, and so valuable. I know it's going to help many of them find the gold and not cover up the gold and bury it again. So this is super exciting. Nikki, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
With that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.